The movie begins in the city. Morgue. Amy is moving a new body to the scale room. Her co-worker Seth notices that the body is wearing a mask and assumes it's a burn victim. Seth removes the mask and tells Amy she can leave early for her birthday, which is coming up. Amy says she'll stay for the last 10 minutes since she plans to meet friends for drinks. Seth surprises Amy with a coffin-shaped birthday cake. She is pleased and thanks him with a hug. She invites him to join them for drinks, but he declines because he has to work the night shift and can't take time off. Their boss Holden, who is in a wheelchair, wishes Amy a happy birthday and tells her shift is over. She asks for her phone, which is kept in a safe to prevent photos of the bodies. They then see a news report about a mass murder at the Blackwell Hotel, suspected to be the work of the God's Hand killer. Holden receives a call from the authorities informing him that 9 bodies from the crime are on their way to the morgue. Instead of leaving, Amy decides to stay and help out, then steps out of the room to call her friends about the change of plans in the office. Holden teases Seth about being too scared to ask Amy out on a date. Meanwhile, Amy leaves a voicemail for her friend Tamara, saying she can't meet them tonight. After the call, she returns to the office and hands her phone back to Holden in the ambulance. Paramedics try to revive a man, but a woman asks her colleague if they should save him. Moments later, they pronounce him dead and head to the morgue. Eventually, Amy and Seth wait for the last delivery. Jacob, good night, the man whom the paramedics failed to resuscitate and the same person the authorities believe committed the brutal murders at the Blackwell Hotel as they wheel the body to the elevator. Seth dropped something on the floor just as the doors closed, leaving Amy alone in the carriage. When the doors opened, Amy wonders where Seth is since he said he would take the stairs. Suddenly, Seth scares her from behind, startling her in the scale room. They weigh and measure the body and learn that Jacob is 320 pounds and 7 foot tall. Seconds later, Amy hears a gurgling noise from the corpse's mouth and leans in to her disgust. The body expels blood from its mouth onto her face. Seth hands her a bandage to clean up and explains that it might have been a death rattle. He tells Amy to head back to the office while he finishes up. As Amy walks down the hallway, she hears someone calling her name from a room filled with sheet-covered bodies. Suddenly, 4 bodies sit up from their tables, and she realizes it's her friends Carter, Tamara, and Kayla, and her brother will be there to throw her a surprise party. Then, Holden joins the group and explains that he permitted them to have the party at the workplace. He also informs the friends that they'll need to surrender their phones so he can keep them in the safe in his office to prevent photos of the bodies. Amy tells her brother that she wasn't expecting to see him there, implying a strained sibling relationship. She guesses it was Tamara's idea because she's always had a morbid fascination with death, joking that her friend is jealous of her occupation. Seth appears, and Amy introduces him to the group. Moments later, her brother approaches Seth and says his sister deserves more than working the graveyard shift at the morgue. He adds that she deserves someone who can offer her more, implying disapproval of Seth for Amy. Amy watches her colleague leave the party in a hurry and realizes her brother must have insulted him. Meanwhile, Tomer sits on Holden's lap and asks for details regarding the Blackwell Hotel incident. When she learns that they delivered the killer's body to the morgue, she excitedly tells her boyfriend Carter that she wants to see it. The couple pretends they need to use the restroom as an excuse to leave the party and explore the building. Amy asks what he told Seth, and he says he's disappointed that she quit medical school only to end up with a poorly paying job in the morgue. Amy counters that she doesn't live her life for her brothers or their mother's approval and that he should accept her decision because she loves her job. Amy storms off, and when Will chases after her, Kayla tells him to give his sister some space. Meanwhile, Seth mutters to himself as he continues working by pumping a dead body with embalming fluid. Tamara and Carter enter the room where Jacob's body is. Despite Carter's pleas, Tamara unbuttons her blouse and straddles the corpse. She says that through reading about Jacob and his upbringing online, she learned that his mother, Margaret, a fundamentalist religious zealot, used to ceremoniously torture and lock him in a cage when he was a child. When Tamara kisses Jacob's lips, Carter calls her out, and she teases that he's jealous. She then appeases her boyfriend by initiating intimacy but ensures she's looking at the body while he pleasures her in the hallway. Kayla flirts with Will, but when she touches his hand, he emphasizes that he sees her as a sister. Nevertheless, Kayla kisses him passionately, and he reciprocates. Meanwhile, Tamara and Carter make love on the table next to Jacob's. Seconds later, she notices that the body has disappeared, and he assures her that their friends are probably playing a prank on them. Suddenly the power goes out, so Tamara lights a match. Unbeknownst to them, Jacob is still alive and standing right behind them. The killer attacks the couple, but Tamara manages to find the door in the darkness and escape. Jacob turns the lights back on and finds his mother's body inside one of the mortuary cabinets. He mournfully cries but remembers the abuse he endured as a child at her hands and how he took her life by impaling her head with a sharp metal rod on the wall. The injured Carter tries to run, but Jacob grabs him by the shoulder and throws him to the floor. Jacob says he saw the sins he committed, but despite Carter's apologies, the killers strang him moments later. The deranged man removes the gauze from his right eye and recalls how he incurred the injury when someone impaled him with a metal pipe. He grabs the burned victim's mask from the operating table and puts it on, then he opens a cabinet with an assortment of tools in the hallway. Amy hears Tamora screaming, and seeing her brother and Kayla kissing admonishes them for failing to check on their friend. Meanwhile, Jacob chases after Holden, and the boss falls to the floor after the killer throws a chained hook at his wheelchair. Jacob snags Holden's foot with the hook and pulls the screaming man toward him. Meanwhile, the trio checks the scale room, and Amy wonders where Jacob's body is. Will points out the blood on the mortuary cabinet door, and to their horror they discover the lifeless Carter inside. Suddenly the power goes out again, so Seth checks the embalming machine and sees it still works despite the outage in the scale room. Will says they need to call the police, but his sister reminds him that all their phones are locked inside the safe in Holden's office before going out to search for tomorrow. He grabs a scalpel from the table in the hallway. They happen upon Holden, and as he takes his final breaths, Amy apologizes because she doesn't know how to save him. Meanwhile, Seth checks the fuse box and realizes someone destroyed it. The trio then runs into the distraught Tamara, who tells them that Jacob Goodnight is still alive. She says she and her boyfriend probably angered the killer by making love on the table next to him elsewhere. Seth drops his keys on the floor, and when he looks up, he sees the masked man while building a curved machete. The others arrive at a locked door that Amy says needs a security key to open, implying they're trapped. Suddenly, Seth appears on the other side and uses his key to join the rest of the group. Seconds later, Jacob's arm breaks through the glass and grabs Seth, but they all manage to run away just as the killer kicks the door down with ease. The group then separates Seth and Tamara together, the siblings H holding up in a room, and Kayla ending up on her own. The blonde woman locks herself in a bathroom, but she's unaware that Jacob is inside. The killer strangles her and tosses her to the floor, but when he sees his reflection in the mirror, he remembers how his mother's insistence that he's the hand of God led him to murder the people at the Blackwell Hotel. He tries to fight Margaret's deeply embedded religious teachings, urging him to kill, much to Kayla's relief. However, Jacob asks the blonde woman why a sinner like her deserves God's help and watches her take her final breaths. Meanwhile, Seth tells Tamara she can escape through the east airwell because he has to stay and find Amy. Unfortunately, they find that Jacob has chained a table to the exit to keep them from leaving. They enter a room, and Seth tells Tamara to crouch behind a shelf while he hides under an operating table. Suddenly, the killer arrives, and the siblings see him through the glass partition. Amy realizes their friends are in danger in the adjacent room and says they need to do something. She bangs on the glass to catch Jacob's attention, but when Tamara makes a run for it, the killer hacks her neck with the machete, ending her life. She breaks the partition with an office chair, and Seth quickly jumps into the other room as they try to escape. Jacob crashes through the wall and grabs Will by the neck. Amy refuses to leave her brother behind but will insist that they go on without him. The man takes a scalpel and stabs the killer's shoulder. However, Jacob crushes Will's hand and jabs the blade into his chest. Amy and Seth try another exit but find only Kayla's lifeless body strung up in chains against the door. They hear Will scream, and Amy insists on going back to save him. She breaks the emergency glass and takes the hammer. Inside, Amy and Seth go down the stairs to a lower level and find Will tied to an operating table. As they try to free him, Will tells them to run and save themselves. Suddenly, an electric knife goes into his chest, and Jacob flips the table over, showing he was hiding under it. Amy tries to fight Jacob, but he injures Seth's shoulder with the electric knife. They hide in a fenced area, but Jacob easily kicks down the gate. Amy is upset and cries as she thinks about all her friends and her brother who have died. Seth comforts her and promises they will escape together. They reach a locked gate, and Amy finds the key just before Jacob catches them in the embalming room. Amy needs to stop Seth's bleeding. Seth asks why she left medical school, and she says it's because everyone ends up in a morgue. She then asks if he has his wallet, and he jokes that it's empty. Amy teases him about his plans to take her on a date, knowing he likes her. She tells him to bite down on the wallet sprinkles, a flammable substance, on his wound and sets it on fire to stop the bleeding. Amy tries to open a window but can only get it halfway. Seth says he can't fit through and insists she should use his car to get help. Even though she protests, she takes the keys, and they share a kiss. Amy squeezes through the window and gets outside. When she hears Jacob coming, she goes back inside. Jacob breaks the glass, so they hide against a wall. Amy remembers another exit. They go to a door on the other side of the building, but Jacob's arm comes through and stabs Amy with a machete. Seth runs away while Jacob drops the machete. Seth tries to grab it, but Jacob steps on his hand. Jacob then throws Seth against the wall. Seth crawls back to the embalming room but is pulled inside by Jacob. Jacob slides Seth across the floor, causing jars to fall on him. Seth gets up, and Jacob throws him again when Jacob stands over him. Seth uses a needle from the embalming machine to inject him and turns on the pump. Jacob convulses and dies as blood and embalming fluid spill from his body. Later, Seth returns to Amy's body, closes her eyes, and kisses her goodbye. He limps out of the building and drives away. When he stops to open the gate, he finds the backseat door of his car wide open as he backs away. Jacob appears, grabs Seth's head, and drives his fingers into Seth's eyes. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.
ومصادر الإرهاب واحتجنا لبعضنا نسينا ألم الفراق شديد مسير الانطلاق واصل